Alrighty, Maya. So, first things first, I am using version 2018. I'm using the student version. That way, you know, this is the out-of-the-box Maya, as everybody would get. The only addition that I have on mine is Animbot, just like all of you have access to now after joining the class. Hopefully you guys were able to install it successfully. It's pretty easy in its installation. I just literally dragging and dropping. Okay, so a few things that I wanted to point out before we actually get started into the interface is that in case there's anything that you're unsure of in Maya, of what the tool does, you can obviously hover over the icon, and then right down here in the bottom right, it's the help, in the bottom left, sorry, is the helpline. It'll tell you what each does and how to use them, just in case. You can also find helpful descriptions in the helpline at the bottom of the window, which we did. And then actually hovering over, yeah, there we go. Hovering over the icons will give you a good description as well. So every Maya scene should work out of a project. It should work out of a project folder. So meaning that when you open up Maya and when you open up your scene, the very first thing, you should try and make this a habit, the very first thing that you should do is set your project. You go down here from File, and you go down, drop the drop-down menu to Project Window. You'll notice that I have my project set to the Layout project. And then in here, it'll show you all the folders where each file will respectively go. So if you're working on a Maya scene, it's going to be saved in Scenes. If you have texture files, they're most likely going to be saved either in images or source images. Just as well, if you have any sound clips for audio for when you're doing animation, you're going to want to put them in the audio folder. And same as for your play blasts. That means when you create a recording or a video of your animation, it's going to go into these movies folders. And you know, this folder structure, this folder hierarchy, you can put this wherever you want, but it's always very good practice to make sure you set your project first before you open your scene, or you even start a new scene. Okay, so let's see. So we're gonna go through the drop downs first up here. As you might expect, in any program that has a file drop down, you'll see all of the normal options. You'll see new scene, open scene, save scene. And so when you save your scene, or I'm sorry, when you save scene here, it automatically brings me to my scenes folder. This is what I was talking about when navigating through your project folder. You always want to work out of a project folder. So when you save, it's automatically going to bring you to the folder that you should be saving your scenes in. And then from there, there's different ways that you can save. You can save the current scene that you're in. You can save scene as in case you want to give it a new name, or you can increment and save. Incrementing just means that it's going to add a decimal at the end of your file name, and it's going to increment the number up. So if I were saving this scene untitled, if I were to save an increment, it would save the scene as untitled 01. There's import and there's export, and then and don't worry if this is a little bit vague at the moment. We're going to have examples starting from class 2 that you guys will be able to follow along and do all this stuff with. Import, export, and then right down here, if you have your project set up already, you can just use set project, right? And then, but if you don't have a project set up yet and you need to create it from scratch, that's when you use project window. So normally when you enter production, there is a shared project folder amongst the entire team. You're going to be sharing that folder per production, per show that you're on. So it's really important that you follow the consistent folder hierarchy. That way your files aren't getting into someone else's spaces or different workspaces, or you're not cluttering up someone else's work, or you're not saving over someone else's work accidentally. The bigger the studio, the more confined you are to where you're saving your things, so that's not really an issue. But in the event that you're working on a small team, you definitely want to make sure that you're working in the correct project folder, especially once you start getting into sending your work down the pipeline, meaning sending your work to other people. They're going to need to know where to look for it exactly. So following that folder structure is really, really important. Okay, and then so below that, it'll show you the recent files that you've opened. You can see all the recent files that you've recently worked on down here. Same with the recent projects. You can always set it from here as well. And as a side note also, that when you are working, you'll notice that the shortcuts are off to the right, just right here. In case you want to work without work with the shortcuts, I highly, highly recommend working with shortcuts and remapping shortcuts if it doesn't feel comfortable to you. It's going to speed up your workflow by 2,000%. And you know, in a production, speed is important. It's very important. So these double-edged lines right here at the end of each dropdown, whenever you see these double dotted lines, it means it's a menu that you can tear off. So whenever you see this in Maya, it's not in just this dropdown. In any dropdown that you might find, this means that you can tear off the window and you can bring it around with you. So if you know that you're going to be doing a lot of, let's say, copy and pasting, or deleting by type or something, or modifying, right? If you're going to be working around the viewport and doing a lot of that stuff, you can keep this up just in case you don't have the shortcut bound for any of these tools. That'll speed up workflow a lot too. Let's see. Okay, so all of these buttons up here, more often than not, when you see things like save scene as, these are pretty common tools, right? Or these are pretty common functions. More often than not, not only will you find that option here, but you'll find a button for it too, just right here, right? This is new scene, open scene, save scene, undo, and redo. So for every commonly used action, most of the time, there's a button for it somewhere as well. So look out for those just in case you're not, you know, you're not really adept or you'd rather not use a shortcut, but I highly recommend it. Okay, so breaking this window down into, or breaking the basic Maya interface down into a few things, right? We have the status line, which is up here. We have the shelf, which is right here, and you'll see all these different shelf tabs, right? We have the viewport, which is this, and if you press spacebar, it'll actually give you 4 viewports instead. And this is called your workspace. You'll be able to edit this later on if you'd like. The toolbox is over here. These are the most commonly used tools in Maya. You're going to use these tools to manipulate everything that you're working with. You obviously have your selection tool. You have a different kind of selection tool with the lasso tool. There's the move tool, there's the rotate tool, and there's the scale tool. You have your time slider down here. It shows you the current frames that you're working with, and then right down here is the range slider. So if you want to increase the range, you know, you can click this little box, and then you can drag this left and right. But if you want to even increase it further than 48, there's a box here that you can just type in whatever value that you want, and you can go from there. Not only is it helpful to be able to crush your timeline, if you're, let's say you're cleaning up your animation, you want to work in sections, this is a great tool for that. And also like navigating down the timeline if you don't want to see all of your keys at once. And then let's see, we have the help line down here, which I showed you a little bit about. If you mouse over something, you'll see it on the bottom left down there. It'll give you a description of what that tool is. The command line, which is actually right here. So this is pretty helpful if you have custom scripts or if there is a command that you want to run and you don't want to open the script editor, whether it's in Python or whether it's in Mel, you can choose. And those are the 2 scripting languages that Maya uses. Mel is Maya only. You won't find that scripting language anywhere else. Python is obviously pretty universal. They use that in a lot of things. But Maya has their own set of libraries for Python, for those of you that do know or are interested in, you know, using Python or scripting in Python. And then we have, sorry, give me a second. The command line. Okay, so we have our channel box right here. you're going to be using this a lot. This is going to give you the information of coordinates, where everything is in space, the value that it's rotated at, what size it is, so on and so forth. The attribute editor, if you just click this tab down here, it'll give you additional information about the objects that you're working with. And then finally, the tool settings right here. So if you want additional options for the tool that you're using, these will change per which tool you have active. And if you notice, there's these buttons up here. And as I'm toggling through these tabs, you'll notice that these buttons up here are changing as well. That's just another place. In case, let's say in case you lose your channel box, you can always get it back just by pressing these buttons right here. So the Maya drop-down menus are a different set of drop-downs depending on the menu set. So when I say drop-down menus, I mean these up here, right? And at the moment, I'm on the modeling tab. So I get drop-downs like mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools, mesh display. Most of the time for you guys that are animating, you guys will either be working in animation, where you guys will have your key drop down, your playback drop down, all that good stuff, or possibly rigging. This is where you'll find your constraints, different tools for your skeleton, for your skinning modifiers, all that good stuff. And so one of the drop downs that I actually want to go over is if ever your workspace gets messed up and you lose something, right? You lose your shelf, you lose your channel box, you lose your toolbox, something. If you go to Windows and you go to Workspaces and Maya Classic, this will restore Maya to the way that it was when it was first opened. Just in case you lose anything, it'll bring everything back. That's the, that happens very often, and very often by accident if you lose things. So it's good to know to be able to, or how to bring them back. Okay. So the next thing I actually want to cover are editors. So there's only two editors that we're going to be concerning ourselves with right now. You'll see there's a category for editors under Windows. We're going to be going over UI elements and settings and preferences. So in UI elements, this is where you'll find the tick boxes for everything that you see. Right here, like I was saying, the shelf. And if we want it back, just tick it like that. And so to make my job a little bit easier in showing you guys this, I'll tear this off by clicking that double button. The help line is at the bottom, the toolbox is on the left, so on and so forth. Status line, shelf, time slider, range slider, command line. And there's just buttons down here. In case you lose any of the windows, but you don't want to lose your workspace with your viewports, you can just restore everything or show everything. Okay, so the way to navigate in a viewport, which is this space right here, it shows you, where you are in 3D space and what you're looking at, is there are a few shortcuts that you use, right? So if you notice, left click and right click don't have anything to do with actually moving the viewport. In order to interact with the viewport, you have to either use Alt, you have to use Control, or you have to use Shift. And if you play around with it, right, if you use Alt left shift, Alt right click, and Alt middle click, it'll pretty much give you the orbit, the zoom, and the pan. This is how you're going to be navigating around the viewports. So minimizing and maximizing the viewports, you just hit spacebar. If I want to say maximize this one, you'll see that this one's highlighted just by this white border around the viewport. If I click over here and hit spacebar, it'll maximize this one. And you'll see at the bottom which viewport I'm at. This is the top view right here. This is the front view. And this is the side view. And so in order to change the viewport that you're in, there are two types of viewports, right? A perspective viewport, which you can see and you can go around like this, or there's an orthographic viewport. Viewports that are locked off to a single plane and don't have any depth or any perspective. Right here, you'll see in panels, there's, in perspective, we only have one perspective camera. If we wanted to create another one, we could. And right here in orthographic, it's the other type of viewport that I was telling you guys about. If you want to create a new front, side, top, left, or right, you can do so here. Okay, so the dropdown that we went through. Oh, I should note that there are different layouts that you can use. It's not just this 4-panel layout. Personally, I don't like working this way. My preferred layout is a 3-window layout with either the with one of the animation windows on the bottom and 2 on the top that are split. But you'll see here that there's a bunch of different saved layouts. Let's say, for example, mine. I like to work like this. I have a perspective view here, and I have normally, excuse me, I have my shot camera right here. And I use this as either my dope sheet or my graph editor, which we'll get to later. Okay, let's see. Panels, drop downs. Okay, I like to do this one a lot too, especially if we're using a lot of cameras at work. And this one is especially helpful for facial animation. Normally when you're doing facial animation, what I like to do is I like to create a new orthographic camera, meaning an orthographic in front, and then I'll constrain that to the character's head, and then I'll tear off a copy. That way I always have this handy, and I can go and I keep this in my perspective view. So if I'm animating, let's say I'm starting to animate my lip sync, and I'll start doing just the jaw rotation, just like a flappy jaw pass, as they call it. I'll just do it from here. And if there's anything else that I need, I know I can find it here. But being able to see it in space while also being able to see it from the front view is really, really helpful, especially when you need to see what the body's doing from out here, but you also need to see what the face is doing simultaneously. Tearing this off and having a copy of just the face cam is really, really helpful. Okay, so you'll also notice that down here, just like up here, in the in this toolbar, there's a lot of these shortcuts or buttons for saving and opening and all the common actions that you use. There's buttons here as well for those same things, and we'll go over these buttons later more in depth in further classes down the road. Okay, so what I actually want to start with is I'm going to start with just creating a quick object, just to give you guys something to visually grasp like the ideas that I'm going to be showing next. So I'm going to select this sphere right here, and then I'm going to drag it onto the grid. Okay, so quick note about 3D objects, right? So 3D objects are created out of what we call geometry or a mesh. A mesh or geometry is what we call like what the substances are made out of, and it's like representation and manifestation in the viewport, right? So this is a mesh. It's a sphere, but it's the geometry of the sphere. The most commonly used kind of mesh are polys and polygons, which we'll talk more about later. There are NURBs as well, but that's not quite as common a practice anymore. And so there's a couple of modes that you can view your objects in, right? So this mode is called wireframe mode, and you can get to it just by hitting 4 on your keyboard. To get to shaded mode, you just hit 5. And then this is what you normally see when you're looking at a 3D object, right? It's gray or it has some kind of color, and you can see it, you can see it as it is. There's a textured view mode, which is what you get when you actually apply textures to your model. You can hit 6. And then a lit mode, which is 7. This is dark and black in our scene at the moment only because we don't have any lights. This is really useful for when you're posing your character and you're only looking at the silhouette. So when you're going through and maybe blocking in your scene in early stages, watching or even working in silhouette mode like this will give you a really clear idea of how dynamic and where you might need negative space in your pose is. I work like this a lot, especially in my early stages when I'm blocking things in. I like to work in lit mode because the only thing I'm worried about is getting a good, clear pose. So I'm going to go back to either shaded or wireframe for now. Okay, so the the viewport shortcut buttons. So to frame a selection, to focus in on something that you're looking at, let's say you're zoomed out really, really far and you want to look at this sphere right here. To zoom in on it, you just pretty much just hit F. And by the way, if I'm going a little bit too fast, or if there's something that I'm not pronouncing clearly enough, feel free to just speak up and let me know to repeat something if you'd like. But this is pretty fundamental stuff at the moment. Okay, so as I was saying, in the toolbox we have our different tools, right? This top one is just a selection tool. You use this to either like left click on objects, or you can drag a marquee box to select multiple objects. You can use this lasso tool just in case you have multiple objects and you want to select some and not others. So let's say, for example, you've got a few of these and you only want the outside ones. Here, it might be a little bit easier if we do it like this. There we go. So, you can either drag a box around these two, or let's say if you want to lasso around these two, you can, sorry, I don't think I caught the center. There you go. You can do that too. This is pretty helpful, especially when you're running into a rig with a lot of controls and you only need to select specific things and you're not using maybe a selection set quite yet. And so the next tool that we'll go over, I'll just delete these for now, is the move tool. So the move tool, the shortcut for the move tool is W. And you'll see that once we hit the move tool, you'll see the 3 axes that the objects are supposed to be moving in. 3D space always works in 3 axes, right? Hence the name 3D. Y, in this version of Maya and for what we're doing, Y is up, Z is forward, and X is sideways. And so you'll also see these little boxes right here that are in between both of the manipulators of Y and Z, or like Y and X. Those will allow you to manipulate the object in those 2 respective directions. So if I select this one, it'll only affect it in Y and X, these 2. By selecting this one and dragging, I'll only affect it in Y and Z. And the same for this one. I'll only affect it in Z and X. But if you're not really worried about which axis that you're really moving things on, you can always middle mouse click and move it. The problem with this is that when you're moving things in space, it may not move true to the way that you want to move it. So let's say, for example, that I want to move it up, but I want to move it forward also. So just by middle clicking, I'll get some representation of that, but you can see that it didn't move forward at all. So, constantly rotating around and making sure that that's correct is really, 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 really important. Especially once you get later on down the line and you're animating and you're worried about things like motion blur and stuff like that. Okay, so axis, left click. Oh, right. The scaling of this manipulator up and down, in case it's too small or too big even, you can just use the minus and the plus buttons in case you need to either shrink it down or scale it up. Going over the rotate tool a little bit. The rotate tool is this one right here. The shortcut for that is E. And just like with the move tool, we have 3 axes that we're going to be rotating in. Y is this way, X is this way, and Z is this way. You'll notice that the colors for each of the axes are always consistent all throughout. So Z, there we go. Z being forward and being blue. If we rotate right here, Z would be this way, X would be this way, and Y is this way. So you'll also notice that if you want, you can just left click in the middle of these axes and you can rotate this however you want. Again, this is another thing that I'd be careful with though, especially once you're animating and you're really trying to control and clean up your curves. You don't necessarily know to what amount each curve you're moving things in. So, be really careful with that. Also, you'll see this yellow manipulator around the entire object, this means that you're going to be rotating from the camera space. So you'll be rotating left and right, and it'll look like you're rotating from a 2D plane, just from where the camera is looking. Again, another thing to be careful with, because if you really want to rotate it down this way, but you're using this manipulator is rotating in X and Z, instead of just rotating it in Z. Okay, and oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one last thing. When you rotate it, you'll see these pie slices that are happening right here. This just shows you to what degree and how much you've rotated the object. So where you started to where you ended up. It's pretty handy once you're trying to calculate spacing and stuff. And the scale tool is the last tool here. Same thing again, just like with the move tool, you have 3 axes. You can scale it in X, you can scale it in Z, you can scale it in Y. And using these, we'll scale in only 2 axes. Or if you middle click or use this box in the middle, you'll scale in all 3. Okay, so the 3 axes that we have are obviously, as I was talking about, Y, Z, and X. So Y being up is always dependent on the project that you're working on. Sometimes, like most often in games, when you're doing things for games, the up axis is actually going to be Z. Not Y. And your forward axis is X, and your sideways axis is Y. So it would look something closer to this. But that's not something you necessarily have to worry about, because most of the time, let's say you do work on a games project, whatever program that you'll be using, it's already outfitted to be for games, meaning most of the time your settings and your preferences will already be set up for Z going up. So I want to go over the channel box a little bit. So the channel box is right here, like I was telling you guys about, and this will be the thing that you guys will be interacting with a lot as animators. Up here, you can see the name of the object. You can rename it here too if you want. And you'll see each of the axes that I was talking about: translate X, translate Y, translate Z. So what I'm doing now is I'm highlighting the channels and I'm middle mousing in the viewport, and it could be anywhere in the viewport. So long as I have that channel selected, it'll move in that channel only. Same with rotate X, rotate Y, rotate Z, and same with the scales. And then you'll see down here, there's a switch for visibility. By dragging left and dragging right, I'm toggling it on and off. But if you want to enter values, in order to turn it off, you just hit 0. In order to turn it on, you just enter the value of 1. For those that are familiar with variable types, this is a Boolean variable. So it's either true or it's not. And below here, below the channel box, we have the display layers. So this is really, really handy when your scene gets really, really heavy. There's a lot of things sometimes in your scene, and you don't need all of it. Most of the time, you might just need your character and the ground that you're animating on. So creating a new layer, you can create right here. If you have something selected, you can create it, a layer, and then it will automatically assign that object to that display layer. You can reorder the layers just by middle clicking and dragging. You can rename the layers obviously just by double clicking, just like you would with anything. You should be able to. Maybe it's rename. Huh, okay. I'll look into that one more. That might have changed.
It could pop up on the different monitor.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well, actually. There we go. My third one. Here we are. So we can change the name here, and we can even change the color that we see it in. So I like to use these colors for when I'm animating for a game, let's say. And there are 2 pieces of geometry like this, and they begin to touch each other. You don't want to see this in a game or in an in-game cinematic. So a trick that I like to do is I'll add this one to this layer, and then I'll add this one to another layer, and then I'll change the colors just by clicking on this box with the cross through it. I'll change one green, I'll change one red, and then there's a button up here in the viewport shortcut buttons that is wireframe on shaded. So it'll give you the wireframe and the shaded view together. This will let me know where I need to fix my mesh penetrations. It's a great way of outlining and kind of getting a real light visual representation of when your meshes are, intersecting. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that for now, and I'll delete these layers. And you'll notice I get all the same options as I would here just by right-clicking in the layer name, right? So let's delete that. Okay, and then, so one of the last things I want to go over is the Hotbox. So all of these drop-down menus up here, they're all available to you as well if you just hold spacebar. You'll see it's file, edit, all that good stuff. Whoa, my visualizer's freaking out. And depending on where you click after you have the Hotbox open, it'll give you different options. So if I hold spacebar and click in the middle, I can change viewports. I want my left view. If I go in there, let's say I want my top view, or let's say I want my front view, or back to perspective. You can even create new cameras from this Hotbox too. And it'll give you a camera based off of the camera that you're in and the direction that it's, or the coordinates that it's facing. Let's see. If you click outside, it'll give you, you see these crosses right here? This kind of, it kind of separates the different areas and coordinates of where the left clicking will change. So if I click in this quadrant right here, I'll get this menu. If I click in this quadrant right here, I'll get this menu. Same with here, and then same with here. And we'll go over all those different options later, but for animating, most of the time you'll just want to deal with one of these. And then probably the most important thing while you're learning in all this, especially if you're new to Maya, is the undo button, Control Z. So you have the undo button here and the redo button here, right? So, and it'll record almost everything. And you can even set it, so if I, Control Z back, I'll make a bunch of these movements, and I can Control Z back all the way to where it started. And, if you want, you can even change it so that your camera changes. Instead of having to, walk through the bookmarks of the camera changes that you made, you can make it so that when you undo, it'll also undo the camera changes that you made. And that's just in your preferences. The one thing that I will show you guys about preferences for now is just the undo. You can find it in Windows, Settings and Preferences right here, or down here with this little dude that's running with the wrench icon. Not really a wrench, I guess it's like a screw or something. Or gear, sorry. Right here in undo, you'll want to make sure that this is on for sure. And for keeping yourself sane while learning Maya, you'll probably want to set that to infinite. That way you can undo as many times as you want. And that's pretty much the fundamentals for now for class 1. Did you guys, now would be the time if you guys had any questions, please bring them up. And I know that this is, somewhat of like the bare bones basics, but if there's anything you guys had questions about, even not pertaining to basics, you can ask me at this time. Yeah, go ahead. Just go ahead and unmute yourself and,
Okay. Okay. When you did the color thing with the 2 layers, the sphere layers and the 2 spheres, I sometimes get that with the controls. I used to make a layer for the mesh and one for the controls. And if I have more character in my scene, I do more layer for control of each character, so I can maybe look at the mesh but not the controls and so on. Sometimes it happens that all the controls that I put in layer, if I use a color, they all turn
The same color.
to that color. Yeah, and I cannot bring it back unless I do Ctrl Z. So why? You know why? And maybe
I do.
you know how to, you know, resolve that?
Yeah. So this is a little bit out of scope from like the week 1 learnings, but that's
Okay,
no. That's totally fine. That's exactly what this portion of the class is for. You know, if a lot of what we went over is, you know, stuff that you're aware of already, we can totally use this time to go over like some questions that you guys might have. And that's perfect. So please don't apologize. So for example, if we're creating a curve like this, and this is your controller, and you're talking about when you add it to a layer like this, and then you assign a color to it, it's red, right? And then every controller will then turn red. So this has to do with the drawing override. So if we go into the attribute editor, there's obviously the object and the object shape. So when you go into display and drawing override, it's turned to red because of this. It's assigned to red because of the layer that it's put in. So what you want to do if you're creating controls, or whoever is rigging for you is creating the color of the controls, you're going to want to change the color in the shape, not in the object. You change it in the shape in object display and drawing overrides and enable overrides, you can change it here instead of in the shape. That way it'll be green, but it's also in the red layer.
Okay, so if they do that in the shape, it's not gonna mess my layer and okay.
Correct. So if you do the color change in the shape and not in the object, the layer will not override the color.
That's why it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, if the rigger did that on the rig in the shape or the object directly, then that's why I get the issue. Okay.
Correct. So if it's only happening for some controllers, that just means that when the rig was set up, only some of the controller's colors are on the shape and some of them were actually on the object themselves.
Okay. Okay. And I have another question.
Yeah,
which
please.
is not really.
No, by all means, please go for it.
I know that. Well, we all have the the preferences folder where all our files are stored, and about the shelves, you have there. I do sometimes need to, I work in a production, for example, in these days where I have more character with the same rig. So it would be like useful to, just duplicate the shelf. So I go to the folder of the shelves and I duplicate the mel file. And it does duplicate the shelf in Maya, but it appears empty. So maybe there's something I need to change about the code inside, or
yeah, so unfortunately
or is it too advanced? I mean, I don't know.
No, not necessarily. No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, when you copy shelves in that way, the only thing that Maya extracts from copying it in the project folder or in the preferences folder is that there's another version of that shelf. It will not record the buttons that are in the shelf. That's not contained in the shelf saving. That's contained in the file or the Maya preferences. Not necessarily like the normal preferences, but it's in the I'm sorry, I forgot.
It does have the codes inside. I mean, if
you open it in an editor,
yeah,
you can see the
the old codes. Yeah.
Did you happen to rename the shelf a different name?
Yes, of course, because otherwise it's gonna look the same. Yeah.
And when you added the shelf, did you add it manually or did you just open Maya and it was there?
No, I just opened Maya.
Okay. I would try, I don't know off of the top of my head, but I can do some research into that one, and then I can let you know either throughout the week or I can let you know during next class.
Okay, no
Sure.
problem.
Okay.
Right now, I'm just copying a button at a time, so
Mhm.
it's really kind
Yeah.
of time consuming. That's why.
For sure. I'll take a note of that, and then I'll make sure to have
Okay.
that answer for you for next class.
If you can,
Of
it's
course. Of
really, I
course.
appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. You know, like I said,
Uh,
this is, this class is for you guys. So by all means, if there's something specific you guys want to know, don't hesitate to let me know.
okay. May I ask one last thing?
Yeah, sure. No, but if you
I
have
have
as many questions as you want.
I have two monitors,
Sure.
and I have I have my main monitor is the Cintiq here, and I have Maya on that.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I open the load, the set project, the save as window,
Mm-hmm.
it opens on the second monitor.
Uh-huh.
Even if I bring it here in the first one, it will always open in the second one.
In the wrong one, right? So that has
Only
to do.
only that window.
Yeah.
The other kind of memorize the coordinates, the new coordinates, but that window I cannot. I don't know. I cannot manage to fix it.
Uh-huh. I have that problem too. I work on two monitors. I have a Cintiq here and I have a gaming monitor here, which is my main monitor. That actually has to do with Windows. That's not a Maya problem. And
But
so,
if you use the you know you can use the load version, the Maya version of the load window,
Mhm.
or the Windows version of the load window.
Mhm.
You know, like a normal folder.
Mhm.
If you use the Windows version, it's gonna it goes on the right position.
Yeah,
Only
correctly.
if you use the Maya one.
Correct.
I don't know.
So that just means that when you initially, like when Maya initialized, it was on your other monitor. And so after having brought everything to your other one, those are probably the first times that you opened those windows on the monitor that opened correctly. When it was still on the other one, that might have been when you set your project for the first time, when you saved, or when you opened for the first time. So that's a Windows settings change. And actually, there is a resource that I can link to you. I'll send it to you on Slack. That way you can that you can follow through the steps. I constantly have to do that as well for for wherever I'm working.
Okay, it feels better knowing that it's not just my Maya.
No,
It's
not at all,
okay.
not at all.
Okay.
That's a common problem. So don't worry.
Okay.
If you can send it to me as well, because I have
Yeah.
that issue too, because
Sure.
I'm working on Cintiq as well, and I'd like to see how I can work that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send it to the group Slack. That way, everybody can take a look at it if they need to.
Also, I have this problem since I made my Cintiq my first monitor,
Mm-hmm.
because before it was the second one.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a Cintiq, but it was the second one. So I don't know. Maybe it's Cintiq drivers. I don't know.
No, it's still the same because my monitor is my main monitor and Cintiq is my second monitor. But when I load
Okay.
Maya, is like what you say, and when I try to like save or references
It's
or
on the other one.
reference rigs, it opens on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I managed to change coordinates for most of the windows in the, always in the folder, but not for that window. Only the load window, the save as, only that one. The other, I could change the coordinates.
Yeah, and it'll memorize the position. Yeah, no, totally. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Okay, cool. If there's no other questions, we can wrap it up. Like I said, this was, I'm going to try and move at this pace for the rest of the classes. That way I have a lot of time at the end to answer any questions that you guys might have. And again, don't feel shy about asking questions. You know, I'm here for you guys. So as many questions as you guys want, you know, I'll do my best to answer each and every one of them. And if I don't, just like now, I'll find out for you, and you know, I'll make sure to let you guys know. So in the next class, I want to say that if you guys do want to follow along, there are some class file examples in the Thinkific that you can download before the next class starts, which is in 2 days on Wednesday.